Hello and welcome back to our Learn Flutter series. Today is lesson number 3. In our first 2 lessons, we talked about how to set up the basic application, install Flutter and Dart framework so you can get started. And then in the next chapter, we talked about how to set up the app bar at the top. In the last chapter, in the last lesson, I briefly touched upon navigation part of it, where I was using one of the icons in the app bar to push a view for another page, another view on the screen, and then using pop to take us back to from where we started. Today, in lesson number 3, it's all going to be about navigation, because your application is all about navigation, because you don't have an application which is only one page. Yes, you could have a single page or a single view application, but even on a single view, you are still going to perform some actions which are going to take the user to different views, bring them back to from where they started. So today's lesson is all about navigation. Well, here we got. So what are we going to talk about in today's lesson? The navigator class that Flutter provides, the bottom navigation bar that is part of the scaffold, and how I use the state management to communicate view state between different components of the view to manage our navigation. Because the way I have set up my application and it's based on the concepts that I have used before. And if you are familiar with MVC framework in .NET, you will find that you do have this little layout and then you have the render body. So when you have that concept, so in this case, what I have as part of my layout is that I have divided the application into 3 parts: the app bar, the bottom navigation, and the body. So you will find a lot of samples, a lot of lessons out there that show you the simplest and the cookie cutter samples that they have put together, where they are just pretty much have a page or a view that contains the app bar and the bottom navigation bar with every single view. What I'm trying to do is, instead of I'm trying to refactor my view in such a way so that the app bar is a component in itself, the bottom navigation is a component in itself, and the body is a component, widgets. So when some action happens at the bottom or the top, all the application does is it replaces the widget in the body section of it. So that's what we have. So in this chapter, in this lesson, that's what I'm going to talk about. I will come back to this view again a little later. So let's see what happens in our application. Well, before we talk about this, so this is the starting point. So run app. So you will notice that I have another class in there called change notifier provider. I will talk about this in a little bit, but first let's focus on our app, which is extending the status widget, currency monitoring app. So like any other application, web application or a mobile application, when your application starts, it's always going to try to go to some view. Same is true in Flutter also. So it is called navigation. So think about it. So in Flutter, there is a sequence in which the framework looks for where to go when the application starts. So there are 4 properties in the material app. Home. If this property if the value of home is set, the application will go to that widget directly. If the framework does not find home set, the next it will go to is the routes. Routes is like the routing framework that you have seen in .NET, in other frameworks. like where you have the named routes. So let me show you what that really means. So here we got our app routes class. So you can see it is nothing but a map of a name and the widget. So the home, like any other application, if there is nothing in there, it is called home, with it represented by the backslash. It says go to home page. And if somebody is using your Flutter app as a web app, then if they type contact us, then that is where they will go. So then the next one is, if you are doing some very fancy, some advanced routing based on the information that you parse yourself, then you can use on generate initial routes at that point. So I'm not going to talk about that. And in case there is no route found, the last one is on unknown route. Think about this as a 404 in your web app, that when the IIS or Apache or anything, if the framework cannot find the page, a path to the page or the route that the application is looking for, in the web app it will throw a 404, and you have an option of catching 404 and do whatever you want to do with it. Same thing if the application does end up with a route which is completely unknown, and if you do provide a implementation of on unknown route function, you can handle the view accordingly. For example, instead of showing a 404 kind of view, or that, oh look, you did something wrong, you can easily guide the user to a different page or provide them more instructions there. So that's the whole idea, is that think of this as a web app, that if you want the user to always go to home page when the application starts, then you don't have to provide anything else. Just set the home property of your material app, or if your application is going to be used like a web app and the users are going to bookmark the pages, then definitely you are going to need named routes or some other routing mechanism, so that when user directly types the URL of any page of your application, or if they have bookmarked any of the pages, then they can go to a correct view or the correct page at that point. So that is how the basic navigation works in Flutter. This is the sequence. This is how the application finds the path to a view. So that's what all it is. So like I said, I have divided the application, my views, into 3 parts. So let's look at, so you can see that in every case, my application always goes into app layout widget, like we did set it up in the last lesson as well. We are coming back to this. So we have a scaffold in which we have an app bar. So in the last lesson, we had the app bar implementation right there. Now I have refactored into a different function called build app bar. There is nothing different, just refactored code. Only difference is that in the last lesson we had the title was hardwired. In this case, it's not hardwired anymore. And other thing is that the icons were also hardwired, not anymore. So let's look at what we have done now. So we got app bar refactored, same as the last lesson. Now we have a bottom navigator bar. Let's see what I did with it. So another thing is, you can see the body has also been now properly implemented using a view state mechanism. Before I talk about the state management and how I did the view state, let's look at what I did with the bottom navigation. It is now a widget, also app navigation bar. Here we go. It's state widget. I really don't need state at the moment, but oh well. I have it just to show the concept. So no different. So you can see, let's look at what we got. Bottom navigator bar And only difference is, instead of having a hardwired navigation items, now they are part of a little refactored code that all my menu items are implemented in a class itself. So we got bottom navigation menu here. Let's look at what we got here. Bottom navigation, that is where everything lives. So where did I implement? So now I have started to arrange the code a little bit in a more structured way. So what I have is, first I have defined that what my bottom menu items look like. Here's my menu item, which has a title, has an icon, has a widget view associated with it, and the order in which it comes. Probably sounds familiar with how you set up your menu items in your web application. Then we got a new class called bottom navigation, where I have a list of all these menu items created, and this is what we got here. It is a collection of menu items where I have given it a title. It has an icon, the view where it is going to go, and the order in which it needs to appear. That's pretty much to it. That's what we got. Now let's go back to our app navigation bar. So you can see right here, what I did is, before building it, I just sorted it based on the order. Now it is being built. Now what I did is I added these items in the bottom, created my bottom navigation bar items based on the collection. And when we say build bottom navigation, it calls that function and creates a nice proper bottom navigation bar. Nothing is hardwired anymore. Everything is now getting refactored into its own classes and views. Now what we have is, when you tap on these bar items, it is being handled by on bar item tapped, and that is where it goes. And in that, it is setting its state, setting up the selected index. Again, now you see a new piece of code called provider. So before we talk about this thing, how this thing is working, let's see in action in a little. The application has launched. You can see that it automatically went to the home page. When I am going to click on contact, voila, it goes to my contact text view. How did that work? Is that, let's go back to our layout. So in the layout, what we did is we said app bar is app bar, navigation bar. Look at the body. Body says that body wants to go to, it's going to look at the menu items collection, and from the view state, it's going to pick what is my current view and bring up the widget for it. Well, now it's time to look at how we are doing through state management in view state. So let's look at what we got. What we have here is, we defined our view state. Currently, it is very simple. What we got in view state is just the current menu index. That when somebody clicks on the bottom navigation bar, I want to know what is my current menu. Now, let's start looking at, there is a package called provider. It is a wonderful package which allows a very easy to do state management in your application, and it is more like a publisher and a subscription model kind of implementation, which you can see right here is that we have a view state model class which is extending change notifier. The purpose of change notifier is that it has a implementation called notify listeners. So what's happening is that the views that are changing the state, they call the function called update current view. The current view is set in the state, then it calls the notifiers, the listeners who are listening on the changes in the view state. And what they do is, then when they receive a notification, They just simply called the current view and look at it and change the state. That's all we got in view state. How is this wired? Let's go back to our, I'll just show a little slide that we got. How is this magic happening is through view state. So I just showed you the view state model class. So what happens is that when a user clicks on any of these icons in the navigation bar, what it has is that it has access. What it does is it accessing the view state that has been lifted all the way to the application level, because all three components of our application, the app bar, the bottom navigation, and the body, they are part of the app layout that we have created. That would mean that the view state needs to be lifted all the way up to the app level so that the different components of the app can subscribe to this view. So that is what this little picture is showing, that we have a view state. App bar is notifying the application navigation. The bottom navigation is notifying the application. Body will provide the change notification to the application, and then all three will communicate through this change management. Let's go back to the application. Well, so let's see what happens. So in the app navigation bar, see, let's go back here. Look at what it did is that when the bar item was tapped, it called provider of view state model, and it says update the current view. It passed the value it needed to pass, and that's all it had to do. Now, when this is done, what happens is, now let's go back to our app layout. Since app layout is a consumer of this view state model, as soon as the notify listener gets called, this one gets notified that a view state has changed, and automatically, since the view state changed, it re-renders the body. When it is going to re-render the body, it's going to find that in view state, the current view is set to a new index, and it is automatically going to pull the view from the collection and show it. That's all it is. So now you got the consumer and the publisher, and how this is all wired up. Let's go back to main from where we started. Since we said that we are lifting up the state to the application level, this is where we have to set up the provider for this change notifications. What you're gonna do is you're gonna say change notifier provider, and in that you're going to create a instance of view state model, and then you have the child of the change notifier provider is your application. That's all you will be doing to wire up the navigation and the view state management to notify different components of your application layout as the navigation actions are happening. I will have another lesson where I will talk in more detail about how this change management is taken care of and how we can use the provider package to use different strategies. For now, we are keeping it simple, so don't worry that you will not be limited to just using only one state model. You can have multiple state objects in your application that can be used for the notification and the publishing mechanism. That's all we got at the moment for a very simple navigation system. Now you can see our application back and forth, and you click, it goes to the right view because of this wonderful provider package that provides the change state management, and we are using its capability to manage the view in our layout. That's all we got in this lesson. I hope this was helpful for you to understand how the navigation is set up using the bottom navigation bar property of your scaffold, and how you can use the state management to do a little crafty kind of view pop and push without actually having to use the navigator class for it. I will have another lesson where I will show you how you can use the traditional navigation mechanism to push and pop the views. Well, that's all for this lesson. Hopefully this was useful. If you find it useful, do press the like button, and as usual, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so I can keep you updated with all the new lessons that I post or the changes that I post even on my blog. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye.